Okay, good morning, everyone, and welcome to this Workforce Wednesday webinar. My name is Kirsten Bayer, and I'm with the Illinois Center for Specialized Professional Support at Illinois State University. I'm a part of the WEO Professional Development Committee with all of the titles, partners from all of the titles. And so we just welcome you and thank you for your time spending on a Workforce Wednesday webinar this morning. This is our professional development series that we have every Wednesday at 10 a.m. And the committee is tasked with bringing professional development that is relevant to the system. And so we are excited to bring this webinar to you today, titled Trauma Sensitive Practices and Trauma Informed Employability Skills. And so we're excited to welcome Reverend Courtney Carson from Richland Community College. I'm here to speak to you today, and I'll let him introduce himself a little bit further in a second. Just a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. So again, my name is Kirsten Bayer. I'm the Assistant Director of Communications here at ICSPS. If you have any follow-up questions following the webinar, feel free to email me. My email is up on the screen now. We are on Zoom webinar, not Zoom meeting. And so it is a different platform that a lot of people are confused by because we're all well-versed in the Zoom meeting world nowadays, post-pandemic, right? And so Zoom webinar, as an attendee, you cannot unmute yourself and you cannot turn on your camera. So it is more of a presentation format that's closed-ended. However, we do welcome your participation. You can participate via the chat or the Q&A. You can ask any questions or comments in either one of those. And myself and Shupi, who's on the webinar with us today, will be helping to facilitate and monitor those. And then we will have time at the end of the presentation for a live Q&A. And so if you would like to speak freely and unmute yourself, you can simply raise your Zoom hand during that time and I will unmute you. And then you can feel free to converse with Reverend Courtney Carson and ask any questions or make any comments live if you would like to. We also have closed captioning on today for accessibility reasons. So we invite you to turn that on. I know I like to have it on for note-taking purposes. And then today's webinar is going to be recorded, or it is recorded right now. And then we also have the slide deck available for you. I will put the PDF of the slides from Reverend Carson in the chat here momentarily when I'm done speaking. So that way, if you would like to download it and follow along, you can feel free to. We will also have it up on our website and Illinois WorkNet's website. Typically, it takes about 48 hours to edit the recording, though, 48 business hours. So please allow for that time before the recording is posted. But you will see the presentation slides up on our website and Illinois WorkNet's website as well tomorrow. And then tomorrow at 10 a.m., so 24 hours after today's start time, you will receive a follow-up email from Zoom, and it will have a follow-up survey as well as the link to where you can access the recording and the presentation slides. We do encourage your participation in that follow-up survey. I am personally the one who goes through all of the follow-up surveys, and then I report those to the WEO Professional Development Committee. So we not only want to know how you liked this webinar and if you thought the information was relevant to your work in the system, but also if there's future webinar topics that you would like to get some professional development on, we are happy to explore those for you and then build those into our Workforce Wednesday webinar kind of layout for the fiscal year. So we welcome those suggestions. So we do encourage our participation in that. And so I'm going to start off just really quickly with our beginning Workforce Wednesday webinar polls. I'm going to launch both of those now, so you should be able to take those freely, just kind of to gauge our audience. And then we also report these to the WEO Professional Development Committee. So first, we would like to know where's your local area that you're joining us from today, and then which partner do you best represent? And we ask these every Wednesday. So if you've ever joined us for a Workforce Wednesday webinar, these might feel a little redundant to you, but we do appreciate your participation for our analytical purposes. It's always good to know who our audience is. So we'll give a couple more seconds for everyone to answer those, and then I'll debrief. And I'm going to stop sharing actually too while everyone's finishing those polls. And Reverend, I keep calling you Doctor, Reverend Courtney Carson, if you want to share your slides, feel free to pull those up.
Thank you.
And while everyone's kind of dwindling down answering those polls, so I'll share the results. And it looks like we have good 32% of people are joining us from Chicago, 23% from Northern Illinois, and then 27% from Central Illinois and 14% from Southern Illinois. And we even have one person who is statewide. So that's awesome. We have a good span across the state. We're a very long state, so we always like to see representation from every part of the state. And then which partner do you best represent? We have a lot of people from Title I, a couple people from Title II and III, and IV actually, and then a couple other WIOA partners and stakeholders as well. So I'll stop sharing that. And then Reverend, you should be able to pull up your slides whenever you want and introduce yourself. I will hand it off to you, and I will be here if anyone needs anything. Again, you can participate in the chat. I just opened that up too. It wasn't open to you, so I apologize. You should be able to post in the chat or the Q&A.
Okay. Let me do this.
You're good. Take your time.
All right.
And like I said, I will be posting Reverend Carson's slides in the chat here in just 1 second, so you can have access to them if you would like to.
I got some technical difficulties happening right now.
We always like to joke in my office that technology is the new traffic. So can't live with it, can't live without it.
Okay, where am I at? Sorry, I'll get this down back. I had everything pulled up, but it just looked like it didn't share for some reason.
Yeah, it's not shared yet.
Okay. Yeah. So that's up, but it's not sharing.
Bear with us, everyone. Looks like it's fast. Yep, there we go. It's working. And then just put it in presentation mode. Yep.
All right,
Great.
we made it through this thing. Thank you so much, Sister Kristen. I truly appreciate you. Thank you to everyone that's present here today. I truly appreciate having this platform to share what we do here at Richland Community College through our Enrich program. We truly believe in this program. It's doing some phenomenal work in this area and outside of this region as well, and many entities and throughout the state of Illinois and other community colleges and outside the state of Illinois as well. So we're just thankful to be here, and I'm extremely excited to share with you what Enrich is, what Enrich does, and what Enrich is all about. First and foremost, I want to say that my name is Courtney Carson. My friends call me the Rev, essentially because I work for God. Amen. Employed through Richland Community College. I serve at Love Fellowship Christian Church here in the city of Decatur. That's the commercial if ever you want to find yourself in Decatur and need to worship. Love Fellowship is a phenomenal place. But I want to get right to it. What I'm always asked the question, you guys are doing some phenomenal work through Enrich, but what is it, right? So people ask all the time, what is Enrich? And Enrich is an amalgamation of life skills, job skills, 2 trauma-sensitive practices, term motivational interviewing, and the circle of courage that's been utilized by indigenous people for 17 generations. The indigenous people believe that to be a well-rounded human being and a healthy human being, that each human being needs motivational interviewing, but they need belonging, mastery, independence, and generosity. What we believe here at Richland Community College is that essential skills plus technical skills equals changed lives. And we've seen this work over and over and over again. And then the next question that's always asked, what are essential skills? If you have that question, I'm so happy to answer them. Essential skills essentially is 12 different components that we'll get into, and coupled with the foundation of the circle of courage that we'll get into later on in this particular presentation. What I found was, and really took the ideal from this particular movie that's so profound: if you build this, they will come. And so what we did at Richland Community College was we built a safe place for individuals to, a safe place of belonging, so that individuals can master the subject, the job, their skill in an independent way, and then practice a level of generosity toward their counterparts, meaning help somebody along the way. And so the first thing that we must take a deep dive into and look at is how diverse our classrooms are, and how diverse our sensitive that we are, because we all work in the arena of tension and promise, where different dimensions of the human experience meet and shape one another. Essentially, it looks like most time people look for commonalities in other people, but in Rich, we look for our differences, and then we embrace those differences. So we don't look past the visible dimension. We go deep into the indivisible dimension, so that we can learn one another's cultures, and then we can build on top of that. And so in this slide, I kind of just shared the common definition of diversity, which is practice or quality of including or involving people from a range of different social and ethnic backgrounds, and of different genders and social orientations. What I define diversity is simply this: everybody's invited to the party, right? And then once you get to the party, inclusion is those who are invited to the party are asked to dance at the party. And with respect is, if I decide to dance or not, you still respect me in a way that produces belonging inside of that space. So before we can get into the essential skills or the life skills, we must take a deep dive into how we are interacting as a diverse population of people, and not looking past the fact that I'm African-American or a Black male. And I won't look past the fact that you might be a Chinese or white or whatever the situation may be, because there comes with some cultural sensitivity around that particular blessing of being whoever it is that God called you to be on this planet. So then, after we've taken a deep dive into who we are culturally, right, now we're able to teach management skills and etiquette skills and workplace resilience and interpersonal skills, adaptability, accountability in decision-making, digital practices and communication, and also public speaking. And within the communication, we talk about even table etiquette, because that's a strong and viable and essential practice that a lot of folks just simply overlook. And so while teaching that, we take a deep dive into who the individual is first, right? So, because we know that through these restorative and resilient methods, we're contesting both adverse and positive experiences of trauma that our participants have suffered through, and we teach those important skills that are needed for optimal success in the workplace. So it's not just memorizing curriculum or regurgitating information or that's on a piece of paper that's in front of us. It's more than looking a man in the eyes when you talk to them and shake their hands. And it's more than getting a job and doing great on the job and growing on the job. But it's really, how do I treat other human beings when I build relationships with them? All of our essential skills facilitators are certified trauma practitioners through Star Commonwealth. And all of us understand that a stressed brain just can't learn. It's impossible for a stressed brain to learn. So quite naturally, we don't, and the first sign of being triggered, along with language, is how do you respond to me when I enter into the room? And because quite naturally, every action deserves a reaction. And because that component determines if I feel like this is a safe place. And if I don't feel like this is a safe place, that could eliminate my ability to feel like I belong in this space. So quite naturally, we teach our facilitators and including our participants to not just look at me, but look at other individuals as just simply human beings, right? And so when we're looking at the dimensions of being visible, it's what do you see within the range of wavelength that our eyes are sensitive to. The invisible is unable to be seen, and it's not visible to the eye, but the inclusion component is extremely important, and that's the action or state of including or being included within a grouping structure. And so those components to me are extremely key to how we interact with our employees, our employers, our students, our participants, and our supervisors, right? And so we mentioned the not Star Commonwealth, but the indigenous component, the circle of courage around belonging, mastery, independence, and generosity. This is extremely key. Belonging is the universal longing for human bonds, is cultivated by relationships. Mastery is the inborn thirst for learning, is cultivated by learning to cope with the not just the world, but what is the skill that I'm learning that's going to create a situation where I'm able to take care of my family. Independence is free will, is cultivated by the responsibility so that every child can say, I have the power to make decisions. And generosity is the character is cultivated by our concern for others, so that every child can say, I have a purpose for my life, or every human being can say that I have a purpose for my life. I'll say this, we took this same method outside of the controlled environment of a classroom, and I went to Chicago to mentor a young person out of O Block in Chicago. Sorry, I'm gonna tell a story really quick and then I'm gonna move forward. O Block in Chicago, and we brought him to Decatur. We gave him a place, a housing here in the city, and which quite naturally created a safe place of belonging for him. We sent him through our workforce training and our welding training, which allowed him a level of mastery, told him to be himself, right? So that we can eliminate his facade and then, mitigate some of those things that was tranquilizing his growth and development. And then what happened, what we found in this particular kid is that he started helping everybody else become successful as he became successful. So this level of this practice of belonging, mastery, and independence and generosity was phenomenal for that young man. And today that young man has bought his own home, have custody of his daughter, and he's doing extremely well right here in the city of Decatur. But I want to go into this thing that we all know of trauma. We've been looking at and practicing how to regulate trauma since 2013. 2012 is when I did one of my first case studies on how does this amalgamate well with job skills and life skills. We all know trauma associated to your plastic brain produces toxic stress, and toxic stress permits one the desire to go back and fix where that trauma experience happened. So, some people who grew up without a father, sometimes they still deal with not having father in life. And we quote them by saying, I not quote them, but we give them the narrative, well, they got daddy issues. Well, really, it's essentially trauma. Trauma isn't a brain activity, but it's a body experience, right? So we look at the vagus nerve and the polyvagal theory because once the parasympathetic nervous system is activated, it sends signals then to your brain, and then your brain will either shut down, and then you'll go into a place where you are either flight, fight, and freeze mode, and that's the surface level stuff. But sometimes individuals think that trauma is only associated to poor people, or I hear this a lot too, Black people. Yes, Black folks and white folks and all other folks have suffered significant levels of trauma, whether it's acute or if it's great, but trauma is trauma no matter how you experience. Murder to me may not be as traumatizing as a lie to someone else, and vice versa, because trauma is trauma. And once you're activated, if you don't have the skills to regulate yourself, then you know not how to come down from this particular experience that you're in, and maybe you will respond in a way that's detrimental to the subject and essentially detrimental to yourself. And so we put people in a classroom in a controlled environment and challenge them and activate their parasympathetic nervous system to only then teach them how to balance and regulate that particular experience that they're having, so that they don't go on someone's job and become activated and argue, fight, utilize language that's hurtful. We see that all the time. Or utilize language that's painful. We see that a whole heck of a lot. And so in the classroom, individuals are able to be exactly themselves. And so once we activate their parasympathetic nervous system, what happens is we see the little girl in the woman and the young man in the little boy in the man. And so that's what we're able to speak to, so that that can be balanced and regulated, so that person can be the very best of the very best that they can be in that particular moment. And it's extremely profound how this works. And if anybody ever wants me to come out and demonstrate this in real life, in real time, I'm able to do so, because you have to be skilled at this particular work, or else it could end up, I would say it would end up bad, because then you would lose trust in the person or essentially the classroom. Yeah. And so we talked about freeze and flight and fight mode. One of the places we don't ever want to see our participants is in a freeze setting, because it's extremely dangerous when participants are in freeze mode, because they are faced with, are challenged with the life-threatening experience of being dorsal. When a person is in their dorsal state, that means they have a significant level of hyperarousal and they just can't function, and they can stay there for a while. And then next thing you know, now they have to have, oftentimes people utilize medicine to come up out of this particular space, because, they go into a great depression in a real sense. And it's scary for me. Even when I do an exercise where I send a person into freeze mode, I always have to strategically bring them back quickly, because you don't want to flirt with this particular practice if you don't know what you're doing, because individuals can simply stay there. I know I oftentimes tell young people, even, drinking alcohol, you just don't want to flirt with drugs if your brain can't take it, because you're doing some significant damage to your body and also your brain with just flirting with things you have no clue of, right? So an individual going to freeze, flight, and fight, we know these particular arousals, because we've been learning about them for quite some time. Here in Decatur, it was fairly new for Decatorites. I've been doing it, teaching it since 2013, even when it was called to Washington to facilitate some trainings out there, so that folks can understand how important trauma is associated to the workforce. Quite naturally, there was a study done this year, and the author or the writer of that particular study, the name escapes me, but she says that 41% of millennials don't want to go back to work, and 36% of Gen Z people don't want to go to work. And employers, when they studied employers said that, they thought that people valued the not the career, but the the salary, but all the millennials and Gen Z individuals that they studied or asked questions, they said then they don't want to go back to work based off the way that they feel. And so we have to do a better job at interacting with human life on the job and teaching the value of a job. The scriptures that I read so often reads that if a man doesn't work, he does not eat. And so that we're making, in a real sense, here in the city of Decatur at Richland Community College, we are making work sexy again for the most part, right? And so quite naturally, the way to balance the parasympathetic nervous system or any levels of trauma that an individual is experienced is through social engagement, right? So one of the things that this country did extremely well is teaching people how to become socially distant for about 3 or 4 years, and it's still the same practice. People are still practicing social distancing. But the number one cure for balancing individuals with adverse childhood experiences is social engagement. And so that's the reason why human beings long for relationships with other human beings, because it makes us feel like we have a safe place. It makes us feel like we have belonging. It makes us feel like we can be independently who we are. And that's one of the reasons why we long for a friend. And so when we look at this thing called belonging, I think one of the things that we must take into consideration in our workforce trainings, and the reason why we practice this at Richland Community College in Enrich, is because belonging is good for business. Simply put, it's good for business. If workers feel like they belong to a company, they'll go to work. They'll be there every single day, and that company will always reap substantial bottom lines and benefits. I took this from an article which read that a high belonging was linked to a whopping 56% increase in job performance, a 50% drop in turnover risk, and a 75% reduction in sick days. They did the study on a 10,000 person company, and that company resulted in an annual saving of more than $52 million. Employees with high workplace belonging had independence also shown a 167% increase to the employer promoter scores. So I would just recommend that all of us take a deep dive into looking at how do we utilize the attribute of belonging and also independence, and then create some trainings around those two things, because they're extremely important. And then we speak to independence, all humans need the opportunity to develop self-sufficiency and self-governing. This is accomplished by an individual given the opportunity to not just accept responsibility, but to prove oneself as trustworthy. I'm a Black man in America, and every time I turn on the television, even the television is trying to convince me that Black men in America aren't trustworthy. So we have to balance that and change the narrative. I say oftentimes that in classrooms, whether they're full of white folks or Black folks, I say all the time, it's not that people are afraid of Black people. People are afraid of the narrative that's associated with the skin tone for the most part, and vice versa, right? So these learning experience, people can self-manage their actions and make good choices, because I'm more than the narrative that television has tried to give me. I'm more than the narrative that BET is trying to place on my forehead, right? And so once we learn that, and individuals learn that we are able to make good choices, then we're able to make decisions that influence our own personal destiny. In Richland Community College, in our program, we have a lot of second chance citizens. I like to call them directly impacted people, but it's almost like as soon as they come into the doors, they're almost on trial with who they are, right? They did their time in a peaceful way. They got out. They should no longer be on trial, but because of the way the world works, they are always questioned or they always have to defend their not just freedom, but defend who they are as an individual. And I'm just not sure if that is fair, right? So we have to practice a level of independence as well. So what's magnificent about our practices here, right? So we have generosity, which says I have purpose in my life. We have belonging, which says I am loved. We have independence, which says I have the power to make decisions. We have mastery, meaning I can succeed in what I'm doing because I've mastered this thing. So not just practice, people practice so that they don't, so that they can get it right. But people who master the skill, they do the job so that they never, ever get it wrong. And what we found here too is that, just given a little bit of our history, we began enriched in the arena of construction. We turned the construction training around here at Richland Community College. Some of you have heard of the highway construction training. When we did that training, before I got here, the training serviced 40 people in 3 years, and only 6 people went to work. Then President Valdez gave me opportunity to exercise essential skills in that same construction training, and I did so. And 42 people, or 40 people out of 42 people went to work after we practiced a level of essential skills or inserted that particular training within our construction training. So then that caught the attention of President Colleton by way of, at the time he was our Senator Andy Menard. They looked at our training and said, how did you guys do that? We would like to formulate something around that ideal. And so we wrote legislation for President Colleton, and he had us come up at his inauguration speech. And he says at the inauguration, any community college that would like to have a workforce training, we would like for you to utilize the methodology that Richland Community College is utilizing. Then he had me and President Valdez stand up. On that day, I felt like I was somebody special because he really gave us a phenomenal benefit and highlighting our work is just magnificent. Everybody feels good when you receive a level of positive reinforcement at a high level. So we transition from construction, and this is going to tell you how fluid and transformative essential skills is and how it works for every workforce training. So we transitioned from construction and went into manufacturing. We asked every manufacturing company in the city of Decatur to come talk to us, to ask us what it is that you would need because we received some funds from the state. How would you like us to utilize these funds? They said, well, if you can teach individuals how to get to work on time and not be toxic to our environment, we can teach them what we want them to learn. And so, me personally, I get it because, people don't necessarily make it to work on time. I think it's a little disrespectful, but however, that was their need. And we said, we'll do one better. We'll utilize our essential skills. We will give them also 6 nationally recognized certifications. So when they come to your job place, they'll already have basic level of knowledge around welding. They'll have blueprint reading. They'll have forklift certifications. They'll have craner certifications, CDL certifications, and things such as that. And we'll pay them as well so that they can only focus on skilling up and be a better employee for the company. And they said, phenomenal. So we transitioned from, not only did we work in construction, which we still do, we utilize our essential skills practices in manufacturing companies as well. And then we got noticed by our educational system, DPS 61, and they said, well, we would like for you all to be in our building as well, or in our institution. Can you teach our young people essential skills? We said, phenomenal. What we'll do as well, not only will we teach them essential skills, but we'll make it a dual credit course. And so we're in the DPS 61 as well. And then what was magnificent is that Decatur Memorial Health Systems, they saw the phenomenal work that we were doing and said, well, Reverend Carson, we'll give you guys $3.2 million if you can help produce nurses at a faster rate. We said, we think we can do that. And can you teach them the essential skills that we're hearing so much about? I said, yes, most certainly we can do that. Thank you so much. And so now we're in the Memorial Health System providing nurses for them. And then not only that, we said to give numbers to those, everything that I just mentioned. We said to ourselves, it's not only, it would be more beneficial if we created employers and entrepreneurs, right? And so we have this beautiful thing called the Minority Mentor Protege Program here at Richland Community College. It's our entrepreneurship program, because what we found here in the city is that some of our business partners couldn't get contracts without an MBE. So we decided to grow our own so that we can help our business community. And it on the pie chart, you'll see that our Minority Mentor Protege program, since its conception, we've been able to create 23 businesses, 10 owner operators. 98% of those businesses that we've been able to create here are African-American, and 44% of those individuals are directly impacted. And I want to speak to that just for a second. Here's another story. One of those individuals, he did 18 years in the penitentiary, came to us. We made sure that he got his driver's license, then his CDLs, then he went to work at ADM, right? And he became their truck driver trainer because his mannerisms were there. Quite naturally, he was a reflection of what our essential skills can do for a person and growing them and making them a better person. So then he says to me one day, Reverend Carson, I'd like to own my own business. I said, I thank God you said that, because we have a Minority Mentor Protege program that you should take a look at as it relates to becoming an owner operator. Well, today he has since then left ADM, and now he has 3 different contracts with ADM where he's able to make $15,000 a week. I'll say it again. He's able to make $15,000 a week with those contracts that he have with ADM as an owner operator. And we have 10 owner operators that have significant contracts with ADM. No, sorry, we have 7 owner operators that have significant contracts with ADM, and our other owner operators are with McLeod and Dunn Company. And we quite naturally, if you're in the city of Decatur and you want a sugar fix, we've helped businesses here with their branding, with their LLCs, with their MBEs practices. We give them webs. We farm out this particular portion where they're able to get a website, some swag for their business. But however, I said, if you ever come to Decatur and you want to get a sugar fix, there's a company downtown called Sugar Fix that's owned by our beloved sister Mia Fields, and that's one of our Minority Mentor Protege participants. There's a candle shop. There's a clothing store downtown here in the city of Decatur. So if you're ever here, please go downtown and patron with those beautiful people who've come out of our Minority Mentor Protege program. I like to brag on this because it's under our workforce equity training, and just a humble brag on that particular training, because it's changing the landscape of how we see Decatur. 24/7 Wall Street Journal magazine in 2016 said that Decatur was ranked number 4, number 1 being the worst, but ranked number 4th place in the country has been the worst place for African Americans to live. And so that's in 2016. That's when we began the Enrich program. 2023, we're ranked number 24, the 24th place, worst place for African Americans to live. So we're growing, but we did outpass Springfield, we outpassed Bloomington, we outpassed Champaign in our growth of the economic wealth for the African Americans here in the city of Decatur. Well, Workforce Equity Initiative, where we most certainly target that population, We have a graduation rate of 89%, employment rate of 91%, and African-American participation in that program is 81%, and 55% of those participants in our workforce equity initiative are directly impacted individual. Now watch this number, because those who are directly impacted are at work and employed at a 100%. And right now, currently in our Enrich program, we've serviced 2,375 individuals. And so our CDL training, we have not a 98% graduation rate. Those who graduate are employed at 100%. Quite naturally, CDL has a shortage. So if anybody come out of a CDL training, they're going to get employed, right? Our Enrich CDL program is 100% African-American and 80% directly impacted. And then our healthcare program, we have 54 RNs, 11 LPNs, 18 CNAs, 60% African-American. Now watch this, because this number is special to me, because, you know, everybody knows this, that you rarely see, it's almost impossible to receive a male RN or LPN or CNA. Well, in our program, we have 24 males. Before we did Enrich Healthcare, we only had like 3 males in the pipeline, but right now, because through Enrich and our exquisite ways of recruiting, we have 24 males in the pipeline ready to become a nurse in our healthcare field. I mentioned DPS 61 earlier. We've serviced 618 students in our DPS system. And the reason the number is so high is because we do a C conference where we bring 500 to 600 students, or we brought 500 to 600 students here to Richland Community College for a conference, a week-long conference, and taught them essential skills. And also we have our essential skills facilitators in the high schools to utilize and practice our dual credit course. We're doing some phenomenal work here. I may say so myself. And we're just simply changing lives. And that gives me the greatest joy. It's not, you know, about the amount of money that we've been able to receive through our projects, but it's the lives that we've been able to change that makes the difference in our programming. And so because we've been doing this magnificent work, we have transitioned again into an EV space where we've partnered with TCCI to look at, TCCI is a manufacturing company. They have the only American-made carburetor that for electric vehicles. And so we partnered with them for our regional workforce pathway in our climatic research center to test EV vehicle parts. And in that company, we are the only institution, our community college, that's embedded inside of a manufacturing company, where we'll be able to teach our participants, train our participants, and they'll also have access to the laboring floor and or the laboratory, depending on where they want to go in the particular field of EV. So they can be a laborer or they can become an engineer. And what's magnificent is that all of these trainings are totally free to our participants, because we want them to solely focus on scaling up and skilling up, and also strengthening their weaknesses. So it's been magnificent. It's been a magnificent ride here at Richland Community College, and the Enrich program is doing, again, some remarkable work. I thank God for President Valdez, because he allows us to be courageously creative and innovative in our approach to how we service the people here in the city of Decatur and outside of Decatur. And with that, that is that would be my presentation. If you have questions at this particular time, I'll entertain those and answer those.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, I don't see any questions in the chat right now, but feel free to type those in there And then also you can type them in the Q&A, or if you want to just ask a question or make a comment live, feel free to raise your hand and I can allow you to converse with Reverend Carson. And then I will put the follow-up survey that you will receive tomorrow in your follow-up email. I'm going to put the link to that in the chat right now if you would like to take it. I know for me, if I'm going to watch a webinar, if I'm going to take a follow-up survey, it's going to be immediately afterwards. So I'll go ahead and do that. And then we'll give everyone a couple seconds. And I just want to thank Reverend Carson for donating his time to our Workforce Wednesday webinar series for this platform today. We appreciate your time and sharing your expertise in the Enrich program at RCC.
Thank you so much. Can I still speak? Because I forgot the details in the flow.
Go ahead.
So I think I shared it just a little bit, but our trainings are 10 to 12 weeks. All of our participants receive a stipend, if you will, or some folks got to say scholarship. So whichever language you like to utilize at $12 an hour, 40 hours a week, so that they can, we don't want to create a situation where they're here 40 hours a week and they cannot maintain life at home, power bill, rent, whatever it is, mortgage, whatever it is that they, are challenged with. So they receive that, and also 6 nationally recognized certifications that goes along with the path that they're on. So if they come through us and receive a CDL, they'll also receive a forklift certification, and all 4 endorsements that one requires for that CDL, and passenger and triples and doubles with that CDL training. And we, all of our trainings have a waiting list. So that suggests that people want to go to work, right? Because, I hear oftentimes that we can't find nobody to work. Well, I know programs all over the country have a waiting list because people do want to go to work. They just want the kind of pay that will allow them to take care of their families. And I forgot to speak to our teacher program as well. So we have a Grow Your Own program where we're helping our school district out with the teacher crisis that they're faced with, and individuals can come through our program, and it's free to the individual, where we can create a situation where they receive their teacher certificate to go on and teach in our district. And also we have 7 essential qualities for facilitators and supervisors as well. And then we're creating this we have the prep program where high school students can walk across the stage with a high school diploma in one hand and an associate's degree in the other. And I think that's one of the most magnificent programs that we have to offer. We've been JFF, Future Jobs for America, did a case study. They had a contract. They took on a contract with the U.S. Department of Education, did a case study for them, and Enrich was coined as one of the nation's best practices in workforce. So we are extremely humbled and happy to continue to do this work, and people respond to it and just change lives. Thank you so much. Any questions?
There is a question in the chat. So what activities do you engage in with your students to help them overcome those fight or flight responses once they are in the workplace?
Thank you for that question. I would have really loved to show it to you, but I'll answer it. So we do a thing where it's a physical exercise where I actually send that particular person, or I activate their parasympathetic nervous system by either putting them in a blindfold, and then the class participation chimes in, and we're utilizing negative language. And then I give them a charge. And what happens is they forget the charge because they're placed in this toxic environment, right? So they can't do their work, they can't respond, and they don't know why. And it's a profound exercise. I even did it with our board of trustees, right? I was scared. I was like, okay, I hope I don't get fired because of this. But however, and so we send them through various activities that will activate the parasympathetic nervous system, and then we teach them how to balance that. So it's kind of hard to explain in word, but I can show it to you. if need be. And I'll be happy to drive to wherever you're located and just put on, demonstrate or teach this way of workforce training to anyone who's interested. But yeah, we definitely practice activating the parasympathetic nervous system and balancing it and regulating it, if that helps.
Awesome. And then we have a question of, there are 54 RN candidates at this time, or there's 54 graduates?
54 candidates.
Okay. And then how many graduates are now working at DMH? Do you know?
How many graduates are now working at DMH? I know that we're going to graduate in May I'll say this, we're going to graduate another 6, I think. I'm not sorry. From our Enrich program, we just received those particular dollars. We've only been operating that program for a matter of, I would say, not even a year yet. So we have I'll say this. We have participants working at DMH, they're LPNs, right? And we have so those LPNs are in our training to become RNs. So most of our participants now actually work at DMH. They're just scaling up, if that makes sense to us. Now, all the other individuals, we have literally a pool of 400 people. Some of those individuals have come off the street, not come off the street like off the street, but those are individuals that we've recruited that didn't have, some are currently CNAs, and some didn't have a desire to go into healthcare, but we do have phlebotomists and the other one, EMTs, and the other one escapes me. I'm gonna stay right there. So we do I'll go back to this. We do currently have individuals working at DMH. They're all scaling up, if that makes sense. I hope that I answered that correctly.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't see any other questions in the chat at this time. Let me check the Q&A. Again, if you would like to ask a question live, feel free to raise your Zoom hand and I can unmute you. I don't see anything. So
nurses are one of some of the, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say, our nurses, that profession, I believe that they're just superheroes, right? And some of the nurses that have come through our program echo this same sentiment, that without the essential skills, they wouldn't know how to deal with themselves because they didn't even know how to regulate their issues until the trauma-sensitive practices, because they are faced and forced with going into trauma, right? And working in it and being engulfed by it, but they still have to deal with their own stuff and their personal adverse experiences, and did not know how to regulate that until our essential skills. One of our nurses, she said publicly in a press conference that she's been a nurse for 16 years. And for the first time, she feels free of the burden that she's carrying. And so it's extremely important for any nurse who's been in this, and teacher, because teachers share the same sentiment, to really take a deep dive into some of their own adverse experiences. And we've seen that a whole heck of a lot.
Great. Thank you so much, Reverend. So I just want to take this opportunity. There's no other questions in the chat. Feel free to still participate if you want to. But I just want to take the opportunity to thank you and thank your team. Thank you to Gina, Taylor, and Shupi. I'm not even going to try to pronounce your last name, but thank you so much for your time. They are dedicating or volunteering and dedicating their time to this. So we appreciate it. And we appreciate learning about all the amazing things that you're doing for students and people in the community in Central Illinois through the Enrich program, teaching them those employability skills. So that way they can not only get a job, but get a career that's going to continue them throughout their lives.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And so I did post the survey in the chat, but I'll post it one more time for everyone. Again, this is our follow-up survey. And then, I was just going to close this out, but then we got another question. Great. Someone asked, do you survey the essential skill students about their experience with the course?
Most certainly. Thanks for that particular question. We survey the, so 2 parts. We want to know the students' experience and if they had a good or bad experience. And also, I use those surveys to gauge how the essential skills facilitators are doing as well. So I hope, well, I know that some may be on the call, so I do utilize those surveys to see if you're doing your job, right? So I may say this too, because I failed to, we have a phenomenal team here. President Valdez, when he hired me, we were a team of just 1. Now we are a team of 15. And with navigators, because it's just not this particular work in the classroom, but we have not navigators assigned to each of our participants. We have 5 facilitators facilitating here at Richland Community College and outside of the institution. Some of our practices are utilized in O'Shea Builders, so I truly appreciate their work over there in Springfield because they have the MMP program within their company as well. And that program is ran by Mia Tyus, and I'll just say names real quick. And Gina Taylor, and some of you all know Terrence Tat Taylor. He is the DJ of the Fighting Illini, but he's a phenomenal essential skills facilitator here for us at Richland Community College. And we're able to convince a teacher from DPS 61, although we need teachers at DPS 61, but she went ahead and came over to Richland Community College to facilitate for us, because we're all serving the same student. And we have 3 directors, Mia, April Ingram, Gina Taylor, that you spoke of, and our beloved sister, Rebecca Zuniga. She's the director of our healthcare, and she's actually a nurse. So we've able to take her from St. Mary's Hospital, but she still does nursing. And I don't know where she gets the energy to do it, because after working with us all week and dealing with me all week, and that's a handful, I guess. But she, on the weekend, she still practices nursing. And then we have Marvin Dampier, who is magnificent, and our navigators, Alicia Thomas and Dier Geis, and a magnificent coordinator in Tamika Thomas, who is also a teacher as well. So they all have we have a multifaceted approach to how we facilitate our enriched program. And quite naturally, we have a phenomenal young woman who is very well versed in the community, because you just need that. And she's a navigator for us by the name of Alexis Newbond. Sorry, I just had to name all the names before I get in trouble when I get off this call or this Zoom. Yeah. And our teacher name is Raquel. I advise anybody to make sure that if you hire individuals for this kind of work, ensure that they have a multifaceted and expertise, because they're going to be dealing with a participant that has a multifaceted understanding on life. And then we just have to, direct them towards in the right way for the most part.
Absolutely. Great. Okay, so again, I put the follow-up survey in the chat. Feel free to please take that. We do encourage your participation. And then Reverend Carson's slide PDF was also put in the chat. I can put it in there one more time in case you'd like to download it. But the link to where that will be located, as well as the recording, is in the follow-up email that you will get tomorrow from Zoom. And so you'll have access to everything. And then again, if you have any follow-up questions regarding the webinar or the content or the presenter, feel free to reach out to me. I'll put my email in the chat for everyone. And I'm happy to connect you with either Reverend Carson or anyone from his team if you have direct questions for them. All right. I think that's it. We can go ahead and close out. Thank you for your attendance for this Workforce Wednesday webinar, and thank you to Reverend Courtney Carson and his team. And we will end the presentation today. Everyone have a great rest of your Wednesday.
Thank you so much.